Let's start. You can start.
Should I start, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good evening, friends. My name is Gourav Singh. I have MSc Chemistry, MTech Nanotechnology, and pursuing PhD in Nanotechnology. I am an assistant professor in St. Peter's Engineering College, Hyderabad, which is an autonomous college. I have been teaching engineering chemistry to BTech first year students for last 10 years. I have attended so many national and international conferences as well as faculty development programs. I have organized national conference also. My research interest includes piezoelectric and ferroelectric thin films, single crystal growth and design, polymer nanocomposites, carbon nanotubes, biodiesel, organic electronics such as solar cells and OLEDs, organic light emitting diodes. Today, I'm gonna speak about emotional intelligence at workplace. Let me share the screen. So today's talk is emotional intelligence at work. Many of us know about IQ, intelligent quotient, but many of us do not know what is EQ or EI, emotional quotient or emotional intelligence. Emotional quotient or emotional intelligence is a very important part of our lives, especially at workplace. How it plays its role in our daily lives, we'll discuss this in next 30 to 40 minutes. Okay. So what is emotional intelligence or EI or emotional quotient? Emotional intelligence is managing and balancing your own emotions. How you can manage and balance your own emotions. It is known as emotional intelligence. This word emotional intelligence was coined in 1990 by Dr. Peter Salovey and Dr. John D. Meyer. This emotional intelligence, after so many years of research. So, emotional intelligence is nothing but the capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. So, what is emotional intelligence? The capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. Okay.
Could you please keep the presentation in the slideshows mode, sir?
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So we'll begin with a quote. Anyone can be angry. That is easy. But to be angry with the right person, to the right degree, at the right time, for the right purpose, and the right way, that is not easy. This quote was given by Aristotle. Anyone can be angry. That is very easy. But to be angry with the right person, to the right degree, at the right time, for the right purpose, and in the right way, that is not easy. Okay. Are you emotionally intelligent, or you still think or not feel that IQ matters more than EQ? As I have already told, IQ in intelligence quotient and EQ is emotional quotient. Before we move ahead, please note that IQ means intelligence quotient, EQ means emotional quotient, and EI means emotional intelligence. So, what are our emotions, or what are emotions? Emotions are happiness, fear, anger, affection, shame, disgust, surprise, lust, sadness, elation, love, frustration, anxiety, failure, achievements, and many more. This above are the emotions which directly affect our day-to-day life. You might have felt those emotions, but you might not have recognized those emotions. So there are two sides of these emotions, or two dimensions of these emotions: physiological side and psychological side. What are the physiological sides? Emotion is a complex state of human mind involving bodily changes of widespread character, such as breathing, pounding heart, flushed face, sweating palms, pulse rate, gland secretions, etc. So these are physiological sides of these type of emotions. What are the psychological side? A state of excitement or perturbation marked by strong feelings. So there are two sides of two dimensions of these emotions which we can feel. So emotions like anger, fury, outrage, resentment, annoyance, and hostility. Love, it includes acceptance, friendliness, trust, kindness, infatuation, shame, guilt, remorse, humiliation, regret, fear. It includes anxiety, nervousness, apprehensions, or terror, enjoyment. It includes happiness, joy, relief, contentment, pleasure, sadness, grief, sorrow, cheerlessness, surprise. It may be shock, astonishment, amazement, wonder, etc. So, examples of use of emotions, how we use these emotions in our daily lives. She is too sensitive. Sometimes we call she is or he is too sensitive. He takes everything too personally. He is jealous of his colleagues. We sometimes we call, or my colleague is jealous of me, or he is jealous of his colleagues. My boss is always in a hostile mood. If he's not, I mean, always, maybe he's always in hostile mood, or may not be in a hostile mood. She does not understand the feelings of others. If you like, if somebody tells that our HOD is, if she's a female, she's not able to understand the feelings of others. It may come, you might have come across these emotions. He's always nagging others. The HOD blurts things out without thinking of others. Nobody understands or listens to me when, I mean, sometimes it happens to ourselves. The management is way out of touch with the employees' emotions. Most of the times it is happening nowadays. It is happening. Why does it happens with me only in my life? I am always nice with the people around, but they are not nice. So these type of emotions or feelings we come across every day in our lives. So what exactly is EQ? Emotional quotient. Emotional intelligence or emotional quotient is simply defined as knowing what feels good to us, what feels good, what feels bad, and how to get from bad to good. If we are able to realize this, that it means we are emotionally intelligent. Knowing your emotions and knowing emotions of others is very important. That means you are able to understand. If you are able to know your emotions, and if you are able to understand the emotions of your colleagues with whom you are working in any organization, it refers to emotional management skills which provide competency to balance emotions and reasons so as to maximize the work in long term or maximize your long term happiness. So, emotional intelligence is the capacity for recognize our own feelings and those of others, for motivating ourselves, and for managing emotions well in ourselves and in our relationships. Whosoever is there in our relationship, whether our parents, whether our sisters, brothers, our friends, our colleagues, our bosses, anyone. Emotional intelligence describes abilities distinct from but complementary to academic intelligence. It is, though it is distinct from IQ, but it is complementary to IQ or academic intelligence. But in Indian perspective, the Indian perspective of emotional intelligence is the ability of an individual to appropriately and successfully respond to a vast variety of emotional inputs being elicited from either from self and immediate environment. Emotional intelligence constitutes three psychological dimensions such as emotional competency, emotional maturity, and emotional sensitivity, which motivate an individual to recognize truthfully, interpret honestly, and handle tactfully the dynamics of human behavior. So we need to have this emotional competency, emotional maturity, and emotional sensitivity, which will help us to recognize truthfully, interpret honestly, and handle tactfully the dynamics of human behavior. Okay, are we giving EQ education in schools, colleges, or even in uh, organizations where we are working? No, we are not giving. Our educational system gives stress on IQ, intelligence quotient, and not on EQ. We are taught history, Hindi, English, geography, physics, anthropology, botany, computers, medicine, engineering, etc. But we are not taught how to handle frustration, anxieties, stress, failure, depression, burnout, inferiority complexes, ego problems. We have not been taught how to handle these emotions. We are not told to learn how to manage emotions, such as interactions, coordination, adjustment, communication. We are expected to learn all this from our parents, peer groups of other role models. These are not being taught. At the later stages of our lives, we are told to master emotional competencies to be successful. So, what is IQ versus EQ? The research shows that IQ can only help you to be successful to the extent of up to 20%. EQ in your life, it helps only 20% to be successful in your life. But the rest of 80% success depends on your EQ. We'll see how it happens. So, what is success? How we define that a person is successful in his or her life? Is it your IQ or the exams passed, competitions cleared, percentage of marks in schools and colleges, or academic qualifications, or earning fat salary? Is it your success? Top positions in workplace? Will it be called success? Being rich and wealthy? Will it be called success? Powerful, dominating, being influential in life? Will it be called success? We'll see. Or success is something else. We have not understood what is success. The word success is a relative term. Living a healthy and happy married life may be an indicator of success for someone. Reaching a top position in career may be an indicator of success for others. For some, having a satisfying job, life, or personal satisfaction may be an indicator of success. Only the tangible achievements may not be indicators of success in life. Remember, only the tangible achievements may not be indicators of success in life. Many a times, non-tangible performance or achievements may be termed as successful. So, uh, I have done the comparison. What is IQ and EQ? IQ can get you hired. If you have, high IQ, you can be hired. But if you do not have EQ, it may get you fired from your job. Or if you have good EQ, it can help you get promotions in your job. So both they help in your professional success, IQ and EQ. So always the if you have EQ or higher EQ, it will have edge over IQ. Along with IQ, I'm not telling that you need not have IQ. IQ is important, but EQ is also very important part of your life. What experts say, psychologists, psychiatrists, management consultants, medical doctors have been proving that there are personal characteristics called emotional intelligence, which are responsible for the ways how we behave, how we feel, how we relate to others, how well we do at our jobs, and how healthy we are. So emotional intelligence plays a very important role. Emotional intelligence tendencies can result in being uncomfortable with other people, not being happy with your job, not succeeding at your job, and even being physically and psychologically unhealthy with stress related problems or not having satisfactory interpersonal relations. So IQ, we think it is related with our mind, our knowledge. Okay, and EQ, we think that it is our I mean, it comes from our heart, EQ. So what is the total personality of a human being? The thinking part and the feeling part. The thinking and the feeling both constitute EQ, emotional intelligence. If you are able to think and if you are able to feel, it will constitute the emotional quotient or emotional intelligence. So what are the characteristics of a high EQ person? A time to wait and a time to watch, a time to be aggressive and a time to be passive, a time to be together and a time to be alone, a time to fight and a time to love, a time to work and a time to play, a time to cry and a time to laugh, a time to confront and a time to withdraw, a time to speak and a time to be silent, a time to be patient and a time to decide. So these are few, characteristics of a person having high EQ. I mean, suppose there is a fight broke in our organization wherever we are working, fight or any argument is there, and in fit of anger we take some serious steps. So it is not a sign of healthy sign. It is not a sign of having a person with high EQ. The person with the EQ, he will assess the situation and accordingly he will act. He will think and then he will act. So there, there is EQ. The person with EQ, he thinks then he acts. Then characteristics of a low EQ person. What we complain in our lives. If only I had a different job. If only I had finished graduation, I might have got that job or this job. If only I had been handsome and beautiful, I might have become actor in film industry. So this kind of complaints we listen. If only my spouse had stopped drinking. If only I had been born rich and famous. We complain to ourselves and to others also. If only I had good contacts. If only I had better friends. If only I had married someone else. So these are the characteristics of a low EQ person who is always complaining and complaining. So two viewpoints about EQ: traditionalists and high performers. Traditionalists say that emotions distract us, increase our vulnerability, cloud our judgment, inhibit free flow of data. These must be controlled. So these are traditionalist viewpoint. What about high performers? They say that emotions motivate us, increase our confidence, speed our analysis, build trust, provide vital feedback, and must be managed. Emotions must be managed. Whereas the traditionals, they say emotions must be controlled. There is a huge difference between controlling and managing. So emotional skills managers should learn, emotional competency, or even anyone. This is for every human being, not for only skill managers. For every human being, emotional competency, emotional maturity, emotional sensitivity. Emotional competency: tackling emotional upsets, high self-esteem, handling egoism, handling inferiority complex. This comes into emotional competency. If you are able to do this, that it means you are emotionally competent enough. emotional maturity, self-awareness, self-awareness, developing others. You are helping others to develop, delaying gratification, adaptability and flexibility. You are adaptable and you are flexible to any kind of environment wherever you are working in any organization or in any environment. So if you are adaptable and flexible, it means you have emotional maturity. Emotional sensitivity, understanding threshold of emotional arousal. Empathy, improving interpersonal relations. Communicability of emotions, if you are able to communicate your emotions, if you are able to improve interpersonal relationships wherever you are working in your organization. So there are a few studies which have been conducted and found, it has been found out having IQ and having EQ, what is the difference? So one study was conducted in America, a study of 80 PhDs in science who underwent a battery of personality tests, IQ tests, and interviews in 1950s when they were graduate students at Berkeley. 40 years later, when they were in their early 70s, they were tracked down and estimates were made of their success based on resumes, evaluations by experts in their own fields, and sources like American Men and Women of Science. It turned out that social and emotional abilities were 4 times more important than emotion in IQ, intelligence quotient, in establishing professional success and prestige. So EQ matters a lot for your social life. Now, the next study of insurance sector. In another research, it has been found that insurance salespersons who were optimists sold 37% more insurance policies in their first 2 years than did pessimists. And study of IS officers. After studying 60 IS officers of SM cadre, it was found that 77% of them fall in the category of average EQ. Can you understand? Average EQ. Only 15% showed high EQ. This research was done by Professor N.K. Chadda of Psychology Department, Delhi University. Then a study of stress and burnout. The managers high on EQ were low on burnout, implying that they can cope up better with the stress. If you have high EQ, you can, cope up with burnout, your burnouts. So, do different professions require different levels of EQ? Yes. Different professions require different levels of EQ. Cluster one, extremely high. Artists, insurance, advertisements, social work, they need to have high level of EQ. Cluster two, high. Teaching professions, like we are in teaching profession. Legal, tourism, politics, business, entrepreneurship, police. Cluster three, average. Judiciary, administration, information technology, medicine, banking, engineering, accountancy, nursing, etc. They need to, they need to have EQ, but even if they have average EQ, it will do for them. So what are the myths and facts about EQ? Being EI does not mean a weak, submissive, or defensive personality. Being highly EI does not mean being extra nice, polite, or sugarcoating your language. The females are not superior to males in experiencing emotions, as most of us tend to believe incorrectly. In fact, the research shows that males are equally emotional when compared to females. There is no direct evidence to prove that EQ is dependent upon heredity. It is not hereditary. However, the environment does seem to influence the EQ. Wherever you are staying or you are living or you are working, it influences your EQ. Advocating EQ does not mean that we are promoting low scorers or average IQ people. Having average EQ is not bad or undesirable. Having high EQ is always welcome. We are not negating the IQ. In fact, a combination of high EQ and high IQ would be a most ideal personality. It would be a win-win situation. Can EQ be developed? Yes. You can develop your EQ by upgrading your emotional skills. The popular thinking that EQ is entirely inherited is incorrect. Emotional intelligence is not fixed at birth. Remember this. There is no emotional intelligence genes as such that we know of today. It is something one has learned. Can EQ be developed at any stage or age of personal or professional life? The answer is yes. You can upgrade your emotional skills at any stage of your life. In fact, age and maturity are positively correlated with the EQ. Same is not true with IQ, which is more or less static. Can EQ be measured? Yes. Though some critics may argue that emotional traits cannot be measured accurately by psychologists have shown that EI can be measured by using standardized scientific tools. There are some scientific tools using which we can measure our EQ level. Applying EQ in business organizations for customer service, hiring, turnover, training, corporate culture, productivity, goal setting, emotional support, leadership. So, conclusion, applying EQ makes you feel comfortable within your own skin and with people around you. You can also understand what makes you incompatible with certain people or jobs and learn ways to deal with the emotional difficulties or ease. You can also understand the specific feelings that cause you stress and learn ways to become more at peace. So I have the 5 key factors that make up emotional intelligence: high self-awareness, mood management, self-motivation, interpersonal expertise, emotional mentoring. Emotional mentoring means the ability to help others to manage their emotions. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks a lot for the input that you have given. It's very important during this pandemic time, as you showed clearly that IQ and EQ is very important. The most emphasizing thing is that you said that IQ is also important. You cannot go ahead only with the EQ. And you have dealt every point in depth, like every point you gave an example, and also what was the research that has happened. I'm glad that all the viewers who are viewing on the YouTube will be uh, learning from that, and they'll be implementing them to make their life better when it comes to the IQ and EQ, especially at the workplace.
Definitely, sir.
Thank you
At
so much.
workplace,
Thanks a
it is
lot,
very important.
Gaurav Singh sir, for your wonderful session on EQ at workplace. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.